What if Thomas Shelby never came home from the war? What if the man who would have built an empire out of horse-track betting and razor-edged caps, the man whose name would have been whispered from Small Heath to Camden Town, died in a hole in the ground in Belgium, with the gas curling down on top of him in the autumn of 1917? This is an alternate timeline. In this what if, the Peaky Blinders never become what we remember. The Shelby family becomes something smaller, something sadder, something that ends. This is the story of the family that was supposed to be untouchable, and the brother who was supposed to be ordinary, and the long, quiet undoing of both. Part 1. The Tunnel, Belgium. October 1917. The earth above the Royal Engineers tunnelers is wet and heavy. It has been wet and heavy for 3 years. The Birmingham lads who came over in 1914, the lads from Small Heath and Aston and Saltley, the lads who had never seen the sea, are now men who have lived underneath it. They dig. They listen for the German engineers digging back. They set charges. They wait. In this tunnel, in this particular night, in this particular working face of clay and chalk and corpse water, Sergeant Major Thomas Shelby of the South Birmingham Pals, attached to the Royal Engineers, is on his knees. He is 27 years old. He has an unstruck cigarette in his mouth, because the air down here will not allow a match. He has a flat cap pushed back on his head, and a thin face, and pale blue eyes that have not slept properly in 3 months. He is going to be a legend in his city when he gets home. He does not know this yet. None of these lads know it. They are too busy being cold. Tommy goes forward to check a charge that another man has set badly. Polly Gray, back in Birmingham, has told him in a letter that she dreamed of his mother last night, and his mother was crying, and Polly does not normally write about dreams. Tommy has the letter in his breast pocket. He has read it twice and not answered. The German engineers are closer than the British engineers have understood. What happens next happens in 7 seconds. There is a small, dull, almost polite thump from the wall beside Tommy. There is then a great silence, of the kind that only ever comes before the loudest thing you have ever heard, and then the loudest thing you have ever heard. The roof of the tunnel comes down. The men who are nearest the entrance get out. The men who are nearest the working face do not. Gas, the long, pale ghost that none of them have learned to fear properly because they live with it like a relative, comes through the gap. Tommy Shelby does not crawl out. We do not show it to you. We do not need to. The men in 1917 did not show it to each other either. They left it in the dark, and they sealed the dark with sandbags, and they went back to camp, and they had a drink, and they wrote letters home. This is one of those letters. It is written by a sergeant whose hand is shaking. It is brief. It says that Sergeant Major Shelby was a fine soldier, and that he led his men with steadiness and care, and that he was lost in action on the 8th of October, and that no remains were recovered. It is signed in a hurry. It is put in a leather pouch. It is carried by a horse, and then by a boat, and then by a train, and then by a boy on a bicycle, and the boy on the bicycle goes down a long, narrow, sooty row of terraced houses in Small Heath, Birmingham, and he knocks on a green door. Part 2. The Telegram, Birmingham, November 1918. The boy on the bicycle has stopped at this green door before. He has stopped at half the green doors in Small Heath. Every doorstep in this part of the city is a small theater in which the same play is performed, again and again, with the names changed. The boy has become very good at not looking the women in the eye. It is Polly Gray who answers. She is 37. Her hair is dark, with the first thread of silver. She has been running what is left of the family while the men have been away. She has been making the rent and feeding the youngest and keeping the bookmaker's books and waiting for the war to end. The war has ended a week ago. Polly has been very careful about the joy of that. She has not let herself feel it. She has known about these telegrams. She has known there is one of them, somewhere, with a Shelby name on it. And she has known it has been moving toward this door for a year and a month, and was always going to arrive eventually. She takes the envelope. She thanks the boy. She does not invite him in. She closes the green door. She walks down the narrow hall. She goes into the small back parlor with the gaslight on the wall and the bookmaker's ledger open on the table. She sits down at the table. She does not open the letter for a long time. When she opens it, she reads it twice. The second reading is slower than the first, and then she folds it and she puts it in the front pocket of her dress against her stomach, and she closes her eyes and she breathes, and she does not cry, because there are still children in this house and she is the only adult in it. She walks to the corner pub on Watery Lane. Arthur Shelby is back from the war. He has been back 3 weeks. He is 31 years old. He is broad in the shoulder and bigger than his brothers. He has the same flat cap and the same 3-piece tweed suit and the same pomaded back haircut shaved at the sides as Tommy did, because that was the look the older Shelby brothers had agreed on as boys, and that was the look they kept. Arthur is at the bar with a drink in front of him, and he has not slept properly since 1916, and he flinches when a wagon outside slams over a curbstone. John Shelby is 20. He is sitting next to Arthur, with his hat off, with his coat still on, looking at his hands. John has come back from France with a piece of shrapnel in his thigh that he will limp on for the rest of his life. John has not said much since coming home. John is waiting for his older brother Tommy to come home and tell him what to do. Polly walks in. The men at the bar look up. Some of them lift their caps. Some of them turn back to their drinks. Polly is a woman in this pub on this night, but she is also the woman who is the bookmaker, and the woman who is the rent, and the woman whose hand you do not bet against. She comes to the bar. She puts the telegram on the wood in front of Arthur, between his glass and his cigarette. She does not say anything. Arthur reads it. His mouth opens once and closes and opens again. He does not make a sound. John reads it next. John makes the sound. It is the sound of a younger brother realizing that the older brother, who was supposed to be the wall between him and the world, has just stopped existing. The pub goes very quiet. Arthur Shelby stands up. He puts both his hands on the bar. He looks at no one. He says, very quietly, that he is the eldest now, and that he is the head of the family now, and that nobody is to speak Tommy's name in this pub tonight, and that someone is to bring him another drink, and that the drink is to be very large, and that he is paying. He is paying. That is the moment. That is the small, soft pivot of the door on its hinges in 1918 in Birmingham that will close on a different timeline and open on this one. In the other timeline, Tommy comes home, and Tommy is the head, and Tommy is the one who pays. The Peaky Blinders become a kingdom. In this timeline, Arthur is the head. The Peaky Blinders become a wound. Part 3. Arthur takes the chair. Birmingham. 1919. Arthur Shelby is the eldest male Shelby. He is therefore, by the working logic of working-class Birmingham, the head of the family business. He is the one who sits in the back room of the smoky working-class public house off Garrison Lane and decides who gets paid and who does not. He is the one whose word the lads in the flat caps wait for. In the other timeline, the man in this chair would have been quiet. He would have planned. He would have spoken in a low voice and made the room lean in. He would have controlled the room without raising his volume, because he would not have needed to. Arthur does not do this. Arthur cannot do this. Arthur is not Tommy. Arthur shouts. Arthur drinks. Arthur prays. Arthur weeps in the night, alone, in the upstairs room of the house on the row of soot-stained terraced houses. And in the morning, he comes downstairs and he shouts again, because the shouting is the only thing that drowns out the weeping. The lads follow him. Of course they do. He is a Shelby. The Shelbys have run this corner of the city since their father was a face on a wanted poster in 3 counties. The lads follow Arthur because Arthur is what they have. But the lads, in 1919, do not yet know that following Arthur is going to mean dying in a quicker, worse way than they would have died following Tommy. The first thing Arthur does, as head of the family, is the wrong thing. He goes to war with the Lee family early. In the other timeline, Tommy negotiates. Tommy bargains a marriage. Tommy makes the Lees into kin. The Shelbys and the Lees come together against the world. Arthur does not negotiate. Arthur sees a Lee boy disrespect a Shelby cousin at a horse fair, and Arthur takes a razor cap to the boy's face on the spot, in front of 50 Romani witnesses, and Arthur does not understand, in that moment, that he has just earned a blood debt that will follow the Shelby name for a decade. The first Shelby cousin to die from a Lee bullet is a quiet boy called Tom Shelby, son of a second uncle, who has been with the family in name only. He is shot through the eye in his mother's kitchen. He is 19. His mother is the one who closes his eyes. Arthur drinks for 3 days. On the 4th day, he kills 2 Lee men on the road outside Birmingham with a shotgun. On the 5th day, Polly walks into the back room of the pub and puts a single bullet on the table in front of Arthur and tells him that the bullet is the last of the Shelby coffin money, and that if he keeps spending the family's blood at this rate, she will be using it on him. Arthur weeps. Polly does not. There is no Tommy to walk in and make a peace. There is just Arthur and Polly and John, who is 21 now, and who has begun to drink the way Arthur drinks, because the brothers are running out of brothers. Part 4. No Grace, London, 1919. In the other timeline, a young woman named Grace Burgess walks into the corner pub off Garrison Lane in the autumn of 1919. She is undercover for Inspector Campbell of the Special Branch. She is sent to ruin the rising young Birmingham boss, Thomas Shelby, by getting close to him, and she does. They fall in love. The world tilts on its axis. In this timeline, Grace Burgess never walks into that pub. Inspector Campbell, in London, in 1919, is not interested in Arthur Shelby. Campbell is a careful man, and a cruel one, and a man who chooses his targets the way a butcher chooses meat. He looks at the Birmingham reports. He sees a violent, alcoholic, devoutly religious man who can be baited into shooting his own foot off. He decides that Arthur Shelby will undo himself, given a little time and a little provocation, and that the Crown does not need to send a clever, undercover Irish woman to do the work. Campbell instead sends a man. He sends a clerk with a badge and a wire. He tells the clerk to plant evidence on a particular cousin of Arthur's, and to let it be found by a particular sergeant and to let the Birmingham police arrest the cousin, and to see what Arthur does. Arthur does the wrong thing. Arthur burns down the police station. 3 Birmingham coppers die in the fire. One of them is a young man with a wife and a 6-month-old daughter. The newspapers carry his face for a week. The Home Office takes an interest in Birmingham that they will not let go of, after this, for years. Grace Burgess, in this timeline, spends the autumn of 1919 in a quiet pub in Belfast, listening to Irish Republicans and reporting their names back to her uncle. She will marry a Yorkshire schoolteacher in 1923 and have 2 daughters and never set foot in Birmingham in her life. She will not be killed at an opera. She will not be loved by a man who builds her a country house. She will live a long life. She will die in 1971 at 82 in a small town near Harrogate with snow on the window. In the other timeline, her life ends in 1925 on a marble floor with a tenor still singing. We do not know which life is better. Neither does she. Part 5. The Sabini War, London, 1922. Arthur Shelby, in 1922, is 35 years old. He has held the family business for 4 years. He has held it with both hands. He has not let it go. He has also not made it bigger. The other timeline's Tommy Shelby, by 1922, has expanded the Peaky Blinders into London. Tommy has made an enemy and an ally of Alfie Solomons of Camden Town. Tommy has gone to war with Darby Sabini of Clerkenwell over the racing pitches at Epsom Downs. Tommy has won by being smarter and faster and willing to make deals with men he did not love. Arthur, in this timeline, also goes to war with Sabini. He does not make a deal with Alfie Solomons first. He does not have a strategist. He has Polly, who is now telling him daily that he is going to lose, and John, who is now drinking from a bottle in his coat pocket at 10 in the morning. Arthur goes to London with 20 men. He returns to Birmingham with 11. John Shelby is not one of the 11. John is shot in a London alley by a Sabini man whose face he never sees on a wet evening in November. He dies in the back of a wagon, in an inch of his own blood, with his coat still on, with his hat still on, because no one has thought to take it off him. He is 24 years old. He has 3 children at home. He has a wife called Esme, who will, in the other timeline, dance at a country wedding 3 years from now. In this timeline, Esme will take the children back to her own family. The Shelbys will see her again, sometimes at funerals. Arthur Shelby brings the body home to Birmingham. He walks the body off the train, in the rain, with his hat in his hand. He does not allow anybody else to carry it. He has begun to understand, by this evening, what he has done. He has lost the second of his brothers in 4 years. He has lost the second because he could not be the first. He spends the night of the funeral on his knees in the back parlor of the row of soot-stained terraced houses. He prays. He does not stop praying for 9 hours. When Polly comes downstairs in the morning, Arthur is asleep on the floor with his hand on John's old cap. She does not wake him. She covers him with a blanket. She walks to the front room. She picks up the bookmaker's ledger. She opens it. She begins, that morning, to make decisions in Arthur's name that Arthur will not be told about. It is the morning that Polly Gray becomes the head of the Shelby family. Part 6. Polly's Turn, Birmingham, 1924. For 2 years now, Polly has been running the family. Arthur is still the face. Arthur still sits at the head of the table at the back of the corner pub. Arthur still goes out in his three-piece tweed suit with his razor cap, and the men still take their caps off as he walks past. But it is Polly who decides who to pay. It is Polly who decides who to forgive. It is Polly who decides which Birmingham alderman is to be bribed, and which is to be quietly ruined, and which is to be left alone because his cousin owns a paper. It is Polly who keeps the family alive. She does it from the kitchen. She does it from the parlor. She does it from the back of a coffee shop on Cherry Street, where she meets, every Tuesday morning, a small, neatly dressed Jewish gentleman from Camden Town, who has come up by train, who is amused by her, who is also a little afraid of her, and who calls her, with affection and a certain courtly distance, the proper Mrs. Shelby. His name is Alfie Solomons. In the other timeline, Alfie Solomons meets Tommy Shelby. They fight and they deal and they kill each other, eventually on a beach in Margate, and one of them comes back from the dead, and the friendship is a kind of brutal love. In this timeline, Alfie meets Polly. The friendship is something else. It is cooler. It is steadier. It is the friendship of two people who have both lost too much, too early, to be foolish with each other. Alfie does for Polly what he would never have done for Arthur. He opens the Camden routes. He moves the Birmingham gin through the London docks without losses. He warns her twice of moves against her by older London families. He does not ask for very much in return. He says, on a Tuesday in the spring of 1924, that he likes to be in business with a woman who reads her own books, because women who read their own books do not insult him with bad arithmetic. Polly nods. Polly does not smile. Polly, in 1924, has not smiled in a long time. She is 44 years old. Her hair is now half silver. She has a single streak, on the left side, that runs from the temple. She has begun to wear darker velvet. She has begun to keep a small pistol in a velvet bag in the bottom drawer of her bureau. She is sleeping less than she used to. Some nights she stands in the upstairs window of the row of soot-stained terraced houses with a cigarette in her hand, looking out at the chimneys of the factories, watching the orange of the late-night blast furnaces flicker against the wet brick, and she thinks about the nephew she lost in a tunnel in Belgium, and she thinks about the other nephew she lost in a London alley, and she thinks about the third one, Arthur, who is still alive, who is asleep down the corridor, who is now drinking a bottle a night. She does not know that she has 3 more years with him. Part 7. No MP, no Mosley, no redemption. London, 1926. In the other timeline, Thomas Shelby in 1926 is becoming a man of the world. He is dining with industrialists. He is being seen at racecourses and at art galleries. He is preparing, in secret, to stand as a member of Parliament for the Labour Party in the city of Birmingham. He will, before this decade is done, sit in the House of Commons. He will dance with the daughter of an earl. He will buy a country house. He will become the rare gangster who steals respectability and walks into Westminster wearing it. None of this happens here. Arthur Shelby has no political ambitions. Arthur cannot read a parliamentary bill. Arthur cannot, when he is sober, look the local labor man in the eye for long enough to charm him, and Arthur is not often sober. Polly is, in 1926, the only Shelby with a brain capable of national strategy. But Polly is a woman, and Polly is a Birmingham woman with a working-class accent and a court record, and the political doors that would have opened for Tommy do not open for her. The Shelbys in this timeline stay in Birmingham. They stay in the gambling and the bookmaking and the protection and the gin and the long, slow, patient corruption of the local council. They do not go national. They do not become a name. This means that they are not noticed. This is the most surprising thing about the alternate timeline. The Shelbys in this timeline do not produce a Mosley arc. They do not produce a black shirt confrontation. They do not produce a communist friendship. They do not become, in the public mind, the most dangerous family in England. Because they are smaller, because they are quieter, because the world has decided by 1926 that Birmingham gangsters are a Birmingham problem. Oswald Mosley, in this timeline, still becomes Oswald Mosley. He still founds the British Union of Fascists in 1932. He still wears the black shirt. He still raises the salute. But he does so without a Birmingham Member of Parliament watching him. He does so without a Thomas Shelby plotting his assassination on the moor. He rises in this timeline the way he rose in our own world's history books, rather than in our drama, unopposed by gangsters at any rate. He is opposed by other men in other rooms. The fascists in this timeline do not lose to the Shelbys. They lose eventually to history, but it takes them longer. Ada Shelby, who is 31 in 1926, has by now left Birmingham. She lives in London in a small flat in Bloomsbury with her son Carl, who is 3 years old. She has not seen Arthur in 2 years. She writes to Polly every fortnight. She has joined the Communist Party. In the other timeline, Tommy keeps her close and uses her and protects her and pays for her son's education. In this timeline, she is on her own. She works as a secretary at a left-wing newspaper. She is not unhappy. She is the only Shelby of her generation in this timeline who will live past 40. Part 8, The Alley, Birmingham, February 1927. It is a cold, wet, ordinary Tuesday evening in February of 1927. Arthur Shelby, 40 years old, is walking from the corner pub off Garrison Lane to the row of soot-stained terraced houses where his Aunt Polly still lives, where his nephew Finn, now 23, still lives in the upstairs room. Arthur is drunk. Arthur has been drunk for most of a year now. Arthur is wearing his 3-piece tweed suit with the razor in the brim of the cap and a heavy black wool overcoat over the top and a scarf because the wind off the canal is cruel tonight. The man who shoots Arthur is not a known man. The man is not a Sabini. The man is not a Lee. The man is not a London Italian, although there are a great many of those in 1927 looking for revenge against any Shelby of any kind. We never learn the man's name. The police do not learn it. Polly's inquiries, in the weeks after, do not learn it. The man is, as it happens, the younger brother of the Birmingham copper who burned to death in the police station fire in 1919. The man has waited 8 years. The man has saved his money. The man has bought a Webley revolver from a stranger in a Manchester pub. The man has come back to Birmingham in the winter of 1927, and he has watched the corner pub off Garrison Lane every night for 2 weeks, and he has waited for Arthur Shelby to walk home alone. Arthur walks home alone tonight. The man steps out of an alley. The man does not say anything. The man raises the Webley. The man fires 3 times. The first shot misses. The second shot hits Arthur in the chest, below the collarbone, on the left side. The third shot hits him in the stomach. Arthur does not fall at first. Arthur sits down. He sits down very slowly on a curbstone, with his back against a brick wall, with his cap still on his head. He puts a hand to his chest. He brings it away, and he looks at it, and he sees the blood on it in the gas lamp light, and he nods just once, as though he is finally agreeing with somebody who has been arguing with him for a long time. The man with the Webley walks away. A girl in a doorway, 8 doors down, sees the whole thing. She runs to get Polly. Polly comes within 4 minutes. She runs the whole way. She is 47 years old, and she runs. When she reaches Arthur, he is still upright. His eyes are open. He looks at her. He says something to her, very quietly. The girl in the doorway, 8 doors down, hears it. She tells the police later that it sounded like a name. The name is Tommy. Polly closes Arthur's eyes a few minutes later, with the gas lamp shining yellow on his face and on hers, with the rain starting again in a Birmingham alley in February of 1927. There is no Tommy in this timeline to bury him. There is only Polly. There is only Polly, and a boy called Finn, who is 23, who has never run anything, and a sister called Ada, who is on a train from London with her son, and a black coat, and a face that has not slept. The Shelby family business does not continue past the funeral. Part 9, The Last of Them. Birmingham, 1929. 2 years pass. Polly does not stay in Birmingham. By the spring of 1928, she has sold the corner pub off Garrison Lane to a Birmingham brewery for less than it is worth. She has paid off the last of the family's debts. She has divided what little is left between Ada and Finn, and she has bought herself a small ticket on a boat, and she has gone to live with a cousin in the south of France, in a town near Marseille, where the light is yellow in the morning and the bread is good, and where nobody has ever heard the name Shelby. She lives there for 31 years. She paints badly in the afternoons. She drinks pastis with old women in black dresses. She does not return to England, not even once. She dies in 1959 in her sleep, in a room with the shutters half closed and a thin square of sun on the bedspread. Ada Shelby remains in London. She raises Carl. She marries in 1931 a soft-voiced Jewish trade unionist named David, who is kind to the boy. She has another child, a girl, in 1932. She works at the newspaper until 1939. When the war comes, the Second War, she does what her brother Tommy would have done in the other timeline. She organizes. She runs a relief office. She becomes, in her quiet London way, useful. She dies in 1972 of a stroke at a bus stop in Bloomsbury with a bag of groceries beside her. Finn Shelby is the last of the Shelby brothers. He is 25 in 1929. He has, by this point in his life, never been a man people listen to. He has been the youngest. He has been the boy. In the other timeline, he eventually becomes a man, slowly, badly, under his older brother's watch. In this timeline, he is alone, with nobody to learn from, with nobody to fail against. He keeps a small bookmaker's shop on the row of soot-stained terraced houses where the family once lived. He runs it badly. He drinks too much, the way his brothers did. He does not marry. He does not have children. The local lads, the new generation of Birmingham boys, do not know him as a Peaky Blinder. They know him as the small, quiet, sad man behind the counter who sometimes lets the bets go on a tab and who sometimes weeps at the closing time and is helped up the stairs by the woman who cleans for him. The Wall Street crash in October of 1929 ruins what little he has. His one good investment, a small share in a Birmingham car parts company, becomes worthless inside 6 weeks. He closes the shop in 1931. He sells the lease. He moves into a single room above a tobacconist. He dies in 1938, at 34, of pneumonia, alone, in that room. The undertaker, a Birmingham man who remembers the name from his own childhood, asks at the funeral whether there are any other Shelbys to inform. There is a long silence among the four people in the parlor. Then someone says, very softly, that they think there is a Mrs. Shelby somewhere in France. A letter is sent. The letter does not arrive. That is the last male Shelby of the Birmingham line. Part 10. Coda, Birmingham, 1934. A stranger walks into the smoky working-class public house off Garrison Lane. He is a young man, perhaps 25 years old, in a flat cap and a three-piece tweed suit that does not quite fit him in the shoulders. He has the kind of face that has the war in it, although there is no current war. He is from somewhere up north, Manchester, perhaps, or Sheffield. He is traveling. He has come to Birmingham this winter because he has heard a story. He has heard, in his northern pubs, that there was once a family in this city who ran everything in it, that they wore razor blades in the brims of their caps, that they were called the Peaky Blinders, that they could walk into any pub in any of the surrounding boroughs and the room would go quiet, that the oldest brother was a giant, and the middle brother was a wolf, and the youngest brother was a Romany prince, and that there was a third one, the second oldest, who was the cleverest of them all, who saw 8 moves ahead, who built an empire out of bookmakers' slips and gin barrels and political favors. He has heard that this clever brother became a member of Parliament, that he bought a country house, that he stood up to Oswald Mosley and to the King of Italy and to the British Empire itself. He has come here to Birmingham in 1934 to see if any of this is true. He sits at the bar. He orders a half of bitter. He waits. The barman is an old man with a mustache, with hands that shake when he pours. The barman has worked in this pub since 1903. The young man, after a while, asks him, politely, whether any of the Shelbys still drink here. The barman looks up. The barman puts down the glass he has been polishing. He looks at the young man for a long moment, and then he says, with the slow, careful kindness of a man telling a child that the dog has died, "There aren't any Shelbys, lad. Not in Birmingham. Not anymore." The young man waits. The barman tells him, in a flat, plain voice, the version of the story that has become the version, that there had been 4 brothers before the war. That one had died in a tunnel in Belgium in 1917. That one had died in a London alley in 1922. That one had died in a Birmingham alley in 1927. That the youngest had died of pneumonia in a tobacconist's upstairs room in 1938. And here the barman corrects himself and apologizes and says, "No, the lad hasn't died yet. The lad is still alive. The lad is in fact down the road drinking this very afternoon in another pub. He has not yet died because in 1934 he is only 30 and his pneumonia is 4 years away." The young man is quiet. He asks finally whether the clever brother, the one who became the member of Parliament, drinks here too. The barman blinks. He looks at the young man as though he has asked whether the moon comes down to Birmingham, occasionally, for a drink. "There was no clever Shelby brother," says the barman. "There was no member of Parliament. There was no country house. You've been listening to stories, lad. You've been listening to other men's drink." He turns away. He goes back to polishing the glass. The young man finishes his half of bitter. He pays. He puts on his coat. He walks out of the smoky working-class public house off Garrison Lane into the wet, gray, ordinary Birmingham afternoon with the chimneys smoking and the trams clanging and the canal water moving slowly under the bridges, and he walks back to the railway station and he goes home. He never speaks of the Shelbys again, nor does anyone else. In a small town near Marseille, an old woman named Polly Gray is at this exact moment sitting in a yellow square of afternoon sun with a glass of pastis in her hand, watching a black cat asleep on a sill. She is not thinking, at this exact moment, of Birmingham. She is not thinking of Arthur. She is not thinking of John. She is not thinking of Tommy. She is thinking of how the light moves on the cat. That is the alternate timeline. That is what happens in the world where Thomas Shelby never comes home from the war. The Peaky Blinders are not a legend. They are a small, ordinary, working-class Birmingham tragedy. They live in nobody's memory. They are forgotten before the war that they came home from has even faded properly out of the world's nightmares. Tommy is in the tunnel. The tunnel is in the dark. And the dark, as always, keeps what it takes.